It's late, you should go inside and get some rest, Tae said softly, his words carefully measured. Without waiting for a response, he stepped out of the car, walking around to open the door for Jungkook. Jungkook stepped out of the car, unsure of what to say or how to act. He opened his mouth, but the words caught in his throat. Tae didn't wait for him to speak, though. You should go inside, Tae repeated, his voice steady but lacking its usual warmth. Jungkook stood there, watching Tae turn to leave, his heart aching with a mixture of emotions, frustration, desire, confusion. He wanted to call out, to explain what had just happened, but the words felt stuck. And before he could move, Tae was already walking away, his shoulders tense with a burden that Jungkook couldn't fully understand. The night felt colder as Jungkook stood there, his mind still reeling from everything that had transpired. What was this? What did it mean? And why did it feel like something had shifted, something that neither of them could take back? Jungkook spent the entire night tossing and turning, his mind replaying the scene over and over. The feel of Tae's hands, his lips, his intoxicating presence, all of it clung to him like a second skin. He couldn't decide what bothered him more, the way he panicked and pushed Tae away or the hurt in Tae's eyes afterward. Every time he closed his eyes, he could see that flicker of pain, the guilt in Tae's voice as he apologized. At one point, Jungkook reached for his phone, his thumb hovering over Tae's name in his contacts. He stared at it for several long moments, debating whether to call him and explain. But the idea of trying to express something so important, so complicated, over the phone felt impossible. He placed the phone back on his nightstand with a sigh. No, he decided. He will talk to Tae tomorrow, face to face. Tae needs to know he didn't mean it. The next morning, Jungkook barely managed to get through his routine, his thoughts consumed by Tae. His heart raced as he walked into the lecture hall, his eyes scanning the room automatically. He hadn't even noticed how desperate he looked as he searched for the one person he wanted to see. But to his horror, Tae's usual spot was empty. Jungkook frowned, his chest tightening. Maybe Tae's just late, Jungkook thought, forcing himself to focus on the lecture. But as the minutes ticked by, that hope began to fade. Every time the door opened, his head snapped up, expecting to see Tae stroll in with his usual carefree demeanor. But it was never him. By the time the class ended, Jungkook was a bundle of nerves. His stomach churned with unease as he packed his things, his mind racing with questions. Why didn't Tae come? Is Tae mad at him for his last night actions? Will Tae avoid him from now on? Jungkook bit his lip, the guilt from last night returning with full force. He couldn't wait any longer. As soon as he stepped out of the classroom, Jungkook pulled out his phone and dialed Tae's number. The line rang once, twice, 3 times, and his heart sank with every passing second. When it finally connected, Jungkook let out a shaky breath. Hello. Tae's deep voice came through, quieter than usual, lacking its usual charm. Tae, why didn't you come to class today? Jungkook's voice was soft, almost hesitant. There was a pause on the other end, long enough to make Jungkook's chest tighten. I wasn't feeling well, Tae finally replied, his tone distant. Are you okay? Should I come over? Jungkook asked in concern. But Tae almost immediately says, no, no need for that. Tae said quickly, his voice sharper than he intended. He sighed, softening his tone. I'm fine. Just need some time. Maybe I'll talk to you later. Saying this, Tae cut the call before Jungkook could even say anything. Jungkook stares at his phone screen blankly. He just can't accept that Tae wants some time alone away from him. Instantly he felt fear just by thinking Tae might distance himself from him after what he had done. He knows it's his fault that he hurt Tae by his sudden reaction. But he can't bear the thought of Tae pulling away from him because of his sudden and stupid reaction. The entire day felt like an eternity to Jungkook. After Tae's brief and short phone call, he waited anxiously for another text or call, but none came. He spent the day glancing at his phone, his mind plagued with guilt and worry. Is he really going to avoid me? Did I hurt him that badly? The questions spiraled endlessly. By nightfall, Jungkook was restless, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying last night over and over again in his mind. He hadn't meant to push Tae away. It wasn't that he didn't want that, it was just too overwhelming, too sudden. Does Tae think I don't feel the same way? Does he think I don't want him? Thinking, Jungkook groaned, burying his face in his hands. When the clock hit 3 a.m., and he still hadn't slept, he made up his mind. If Tae doesn't come to class tomorrow, he will go to Tae's apartment. He needs to fix this. He needs to explain himself. The next day, Jungkook entered the lecture hall early, his nerves on edge. His eyes scanned the room repeatedly as students trickled in. When class began, he felt his heart sink. There was still no sign of Tae. But just as Jungkook started to think the worst, the door creaked open, and Tae walked in. Jungkook's heart soared momentarily, but that relief was short-lived. Something was off. Tae wasn't himself. His usual carefree energy, his subtle smirks, and teasing glances were nowhere to be seen. Instead, Tae looked distant, almost detached. Throughout the entire lecture, Jungkook couldn't stop staring at him. His eyes silently begged for Tae to look his way, to meet his gaze, but it was like Tae was deliberately avoiding him. By the time the lecture ended, Jungkook could barely focus on his words as he dismissed the class. He saw Tae sling his bag over his shoulder and head towards the door without sparing him a glance. No, not this time. Jungkook moved quickly, stepping in front of him and grabbing his wrist. Tae, wait. Jungkook said, his voice firm yet trembling slightly. Tae turned to him, his expression unreadable, but there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Professor Jeon, what are you doing? Tae asked softly, his voice void of its usual warmth. Jungkook winced at the formal tone. His grip tightened as he stared into Tae's eyes, his own filled with desperation. Don't call me that. Not when we're alone. We need to talk. Jungkook said, looking at Tae's eyes. We're in the class, Jungkook. The door is open. Don't do something that will cause trouble for you. We can talk later. Tae said, pulling his hand back, his voice calm but with a hint of urgency. Hearing Tae's words, Jungkook's heart sank. His eyes flickered with disbelief, and as his gaze fell to Tae's hands, he froze. His breath caught in his throat, his eyes locking onto the small, still fresh. Tae had hurt himself. Jungkook's throat tightened as guilt and fury surged through him. He grabbed Tae's hand again. Tears burned at the back of Jungkook's eyes. Why did you do this? Why did you hurt yourself, when I'm the one who's at fault here? Jungkook asked. His voice shook with a mixture of guilt and fury, the knot in his stomach twisting. His words exploded from him, the desperation leaking through every syllable. Tae quickly yanked his hand away, stepping back, his face carefully composed. Hey, it's just an accident. Don't overthink it. And the door is still open. Aren't you afraid someone might see us like this? Tae said, his tone so dismissive, so indifferent, it made Jungkook's. The sight of Tae pulling away again, so nonchalant, made Jungkook's mind snap. He couldn't let this go. He couldn't just stand there and let Tae dismiss his pain like it meant nothing. Not after everything. Not after this. He clenched his fists, his emotions overwhelming him. Without a second's thought, he turned and slammed the classroom door shut with enough force to make the walls tremble. The echo of the slam reverberated in the now empty lecture hall. Jungkook turned back to Tae, his chest heaving, his voice breaking. The freaking door is closed now. No one can see us. So tell me, why did you hurt yourself? Jungkook spat, his voice harsh. His eyes burned with tears, the rage and guilt fighting for control. Who the gave you permission to do that to yourself? Jungkook's words were a roar, desperation crackling in the air between them. Tae's eyes widened at Jungkook's sudden outburst. For a moment, he seemed speechless, caught off guard by the desperation in Jungkook's voice. But he quickly masked his shock, his voice soft but firm. I told you, it was an accident. Stop overreacting. This isn't. Before he could finish, Jungkook stepped forward, grabbing Tae's jacket collar, yanking him closer. The emotion in Jungkook's eyes cut through the indifference, the anger, the confusion. Don't you dare lie to me, Kim Taehyung. Jungkook choked out through clenched teeth, his voice barely above a whisper but laced with heartbreak. I know you did this because of my stupid reaction. You shouldn't have to go through this because of me. You shouldn't have to give me that much priority when it's my fault. Don't pretend this is nothing. Don't pretend this is just an accident. You hurt yourself because of me, because I pushed you away, because I'm an idiot who can't even bear his own emotions. Tears fell freely from Jungkook's eyes, his breath ragged as he held Tae against him, his grip almost frantic. You shouldn't have to do this, Tae. Jungkook whispered brokenly, his forehead pressed against the younger man's, his hands shaking as they held on to Tae's collar. I don't deserve you. You're way too good for me. But I'm selfish. I can't even bear the thought of you pulling away from me. I know I hurt you. But believe me, I didn't mean to hurt you. It's just happened in sudden panic. Only because I'm not as perfect as you make me feel. In reality, I'm a coward who doesn't know how to express his feelings. Who get panic because of his own overwhelmed emotions. Tae's eyes softened, His lips parted as if to say something, but no words came. As if all the words got stuck in his throat. He is too overwhelmed by Jungkook's sudden emotional confession. He didn't expect Jungkook to outburst like this. He looked at Jungkook's tear-streaked face, his grip still firm on his collar, and something in his chest tightened painfully. The unspoken words hanging heavily between them. Jungkook could feel his own heart shattering in his chest, every word tasting like ash in his mouth. How could he be so stupid? How could he have pushed Tae away, only for him to hurt himself in silence, all because of Jungkook's own panic, his own fear? Please don't shut me out, Tae. Don't pull away from me. I can't live without you. I can't lose you. Not like this. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry for hurting your feelings. I swear I will never hurt you again. Just don't leave me, please. I love you. I love you so much. Looking at Tae with pleading eyes, Jungkook said desperately as if his life depended on it. But to be continued.